God. That's all I can hear right now since it dropped late last night for my Mets fans that know. Jose Iglesias dropping absolute bangers with the new OMG song in which he was live performing with the entire Mets team as they had a little nice get-together at Citi Field during the off day yesterday. How's it going, everybody? It's your boy Wardy, and as you can see, we're back at it talking about the Amazons, and we're back at it with our latest Metropolitan pregame segment. In today's show, we're going to take a look at these two lineups as the two hottest teams in Major League Baseball, one from the American League in the Astros, and one from the National League in the Mets, match up for a big three-game set in Flushing, Queens, Citi Field, where the Mets will be rocking their beautiful black jerseys this Friday night, and we're going to have ourselves an exciting matchup between the two, along with some key updates on the bullpen front, along with David Stearns' updates that he had himself at a pregame presser today. Everything and then some, rather, is what I meant to say there, as well. We'll be breaking down in today's show. To everybody first chiming in, happy to have you all in here. Mike, how you doing? Similar answer to that, Fujinami's out with injury still. The Mets will not be calling him up anytime soon. Certified Random, how are you? Happy to have you in here. Says, this series is important. Whoever wins this series remains over 500. Yes, if the Mets can win two out of three in this series, they will be above 500. The Astros just got to 500 along with the Mets here. The Astros sitting 40-40 on the season versus what we saw there, that being in 39-39 with the Mets right now. Yet this is going to be an exciting series between the two teams, and we have a lot to break down that I'm looking forward to. However, I'm not looking forward to sharing this rather unfortunate update to the Mets bullpen. I think that's how we should kick off today's pregame show, especially for my viewers who come chiming in after the fact that aren't here necessarily for the pregame analysis, but rather the latest updates on the Mets news front. And the latest updates are as follows. Kodai Senga threw another perfect-looking bullpen yesterday, over 20 pitches or so. A live bullpen, that went great. Now the next step again for Senga, according to David Stearns, is can we now get him in rehab stints starting next week where he's facing live batters in the minor leagues. So everything continues to trend upward for Kodai Senga and, of course, his ultimate return to this Mets rotation at some point in the second half of the season after the All-Star break. Rest assured, finally, after multiple hiccups, after multiple setbacks, and I'm knocking on wood here, of course, things are starting to trend in the right direction. Lisa, how are you? Happy to have you in here. Edward, B-Money, Yeet as well. Camel going up the list. Steven, Gilbert, let's see, Sean, MD, Robert, GD, you guys are the absolute best. Happy to have you all in here as we're breaking down the latest in Metsland as they're about to kick off a three-game set here against the Houston Astros. One team was very underwhelming to start the year, now been getting hot. The Mets, the same applies. Start of the year, unbelievably underwhelming to the point that no one thought the Mets would get even to 500 again this season. I remember Mets fans going out of their way to tell me that the Mets will never touch 500 ball again this season, and that I'm an idiot and the schmuck that I am for thinking otherwise, and here we are at 500. It's almost like I hear crickets to some of those fans that haven't coughed up and, said that they were wrong in that situation, looking at those predictions a month plus ago in a 162 season. But I digress. Let's now reel back into, okay, we talked about, obviously, the latest update with Kodai Senga. Now let's get into the unfortunate news, which is headlined by, yes, Drew Smith. Now, I know Drew Smith is a polarizing topic of a reliever for the Mets because while by no means is he a horrendous reliever or anything like that, he has been far from a reliever that Mets fans have been overly comfortable with, especially in high leverage situations, as he has been beyond prone to the long ball that we've seen throughout his career in high leverage situations. And one-run ball games, or two-run ball games, he has given up home runs over 20 times throughout his Mets tenure. Not ideal, to say the least. But Drew Smith has been very serviceable for the Mets at times too, and there's a reason why he has around a 3.6, 3.7 career ERA as a Mets reliever, and his time in Queens looks like it has now come to an end, as Drew Smith will be on the shelf for the remainder of the season, getting Tommy John surgery for the second time in his career. And I know this raised a lot of great questions early among Mets fans saying, how did this happen? As Drew Smith said it himself today, trying to hold back tears, how unfortunately the imaging, there was more damage to, his elbow than he initially thought, and that is not something that just happens overnight. So for the people that think, oh, is this simply because Drew Smith had to get ramped up when Edwin Diaz was suspended and ejected from the game a couple days ago? No, that is not the case. Again, this is something that happens and was really a ticking time bomb. Similar to Edwin Diaz's knee, that was going to happen at some point regardless because of the softening in the area. The same can apply with the damage that's been going to Drew Smith already. Again, one removed from Tommy John surgery, repaired elbow. So to anyone that thinks that, okay, Edwin is the reason why that happened because Drew had to get ramped up, far from it. Yes, did that maybe expose it? Sure, but it was still a ticking time bomb for something that was inevitably going to happen at some point this season. So Drew Smith is now out for the remainder of the year, and Drew again held back tears today because he was speaking how this might be his last time, with the Mets and in the Mets uniform as he's a pending free agent. Knowing how David Stearns operates and knowing the up and downs Drew Smith has had throughout his tenure as a Mets reliever, if I'm a betting man, I would say that Drew Smith returning to the Mets is far from a guarantee, so I understand where those emotions came from on his side of things, and it definitely does suck to see. Again, I know that you guys either love or hate Drew. There's really no in between, especially when it comes to these relievers, but I certainly do feel for him, and I think a lot of us feel for him as well. A Brooklyn guy, I have been getting sleep, but it's been up and down. That too has been up and down. Apologies in advance, folks, if I've been freezing in the show. Hopefully the connection's okay as you guys continue to smash that like and subscribe on. Greatly appreciate that. This guy's always been a roller coaster with Mets fans, especially when giving away games of batting practice fastballs. Yep, no, I wish him well too, but this is my exact point, right? Oh my God, LFGM, you said it, boss. Happy to have you in here, says John Infante as always. But yeah, I think we all feel bad for Drew Smith. So again, if this is his final time in the Mets bullpen, I wish him the absolute best in not only his speedy recovery from Tommy John surgery for a second time, but wherever he may ultimately land, should it not be the Mets after this season, because he's done for the calendar 2024 regular year with the Metropolitans here. So Drew Smith, unfortunately on the shelf, joins Brooks Raley and Nate Lavender as notable Mets arms who have now since ended their seasons due to Tommy John surgery. Nate Lavender, who was a standout southpaw that we saw doing very Nestor Cortez type things with his leg kicks and how long he would wait to release the baseball and hold his leg up, was looking really fun in spring, was going to be an option for the Mets this season. Unfortunately, went down at the AAA level and had a reconstructive Tommy John surgery. Brooks Raley, he's done, and he's a pending free agent. We'll probably never see him in the Mets uniform again unless we see a reunion there, which I would love. So David Stearns, not opposed to you doing that there. Drew Smith now is a third one. So with all these guys down, Sean Reed fully on the injury list over the past couple of days, Edwin Diaz still suspended for the next number of games. The Mets have a bullpen problem right now. They really do. This was a bullpen that, heading into the season, I was beyond taken back and surprised and also grateful with the immediate production it had and the way it was carrying the weight of this Mets team in that first month plus. But then as they free-falled in their miserable May, now entering a joyful June, one thing that's still been a problem and has been this bullpen being way overtaxed and needing to rely on guys that you initially didn't think you need to rely on, and the Danil Nunez's, the Danny Yuns, the Reed Garrett's, etc. of guys that are having great impacts in this bullpen, but are internal options that you initially weren't expecting when the season first began. At least not expecting throughout the first week or so of the season, I should say. So David Stearns is an absolute mastermind when it comes to constructing bullpens, so I'm far from concerned on that front and what the Mets plan to do in addressing that area. And when asked about the Mets bullpen, David Stearns said how this is always, an ever-changing thing, obviously, and the Mets, they will certainly, be open to all possibilities leading up to the deadline. And when asked, could the Mets be buyers, he said, yeah, sure, without hesitation. The same way that he didn't scoff at the notion of the Mets buying and selling, the way that some fans still seem to be doing, even when we now have the Popo himself say that yes, this is a possibility, and we're going to continue to evaluate all options for what we think is best. But how things are trending right now, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that the Mets are happy with their direction, but they definitely need immediate help with this bullpen. And while they do have some internal options, they just brought up Babcock, who had a 3.45 ERA with the Mariners, and a decent sample size last year, was brutal so far in AAA this year. And by brutal, I mean just, underwhelming ERA, but that might be an inflated ERA if he's been doing better as of late out there. Known for his nice slider too, which is very much a David Stearns offseason pickup to do, which he certainly did for Babcock. Now is David Stearns going to be looking for some either potential trade partners or any guys on the waiver wire in the coming days to help out in immediate relief? That is a great question that we have, because this Mets bullpen can definitely use the help right now, as they are missing multiple innings eaters. And again, while Nunez, while Yun, and while Reed have been awesome, they're not guys that we can depend and expect them to be nails every single time out there. We've seen Reed Garrett get barreled up a good amount this season after looking great his first month. He's now kind of settled down and he's looking solid, but I still can't get over him throwing that meatball right to Aaron Judge. Basically middle was ridiculous for that grand salami a couple days ago in the Subway Series. And then you got Danny Young, who unfortunately has been able to get out of his own jams the past couple times out there. So we all know that there's production in this bullpen to be had, but we also know that this production, it might be fickle in how long you're going to get. The longevity from specific guys may vary quite a bit. And that's where David Stearns comes into play, into finding your immediate solutions. Even if they're not long-term solutions, they're immediate. Also, apologies, guys, you might see a fly. There's one big pain in my ass of a fly that will not leave me alone, that won't get out of my room. So if you see him zooming around, maybe he's even going to land on the camera at some point, like bam, especially that zoomed in face of the bug from the old SpongeBob episode. If you know, you know, then I apologize in advance. But reeling back into this one here, this bullpen is something that the Mets will likely be addressing plenty leading up to the deadline, and I wouldn't be shocked if they address it sooner than that, now finding out the news to Drew Smith especially. They obviously need to figure out what they're going to be doing now that Drew Flo, while they made the corresponding move for Abcock, they did not have in mind Drew Smith being out for the remainder of the season now. So for the Mets here, I did talk about some relief options I think make sense to them a couple days ago in our early Mets trade deadline prediction video. So check that out if you haven't already, folks. But there's a lot of solid relief options for the Mets. There's a lot of ones that they really don't have to pay much to get, if anything, for that matter. And this is where the David Stearns Pobo really comes into play on taking advantage of his knowledge of the game, the newfound information, and really testing not only the waiver wire, which is an important thing to evaluate every day with who's being cut from certain rosters, who's exposed versus who's not, but also trade-wise as well to kind of start to build up those relationships, have some of those calls, and even if it's a lesser deal with a solid suitor, that could be one move, multiple moves that happens with that same team leading closer to the MLB trade deadline. So, yes, this Mets bullpen is definitely taxed right now, but the good thing is that they're coming off of an off day, and they are thankfully, even though they, yes, are going to be having a 17-game and 17 stretch beginning, they are certainly a team that I have faith in, even if they have a lack of rotation depth. Christian Scott will inevitably be in this rotation sooner than later. Hopefully in the coming days we'll hear that announcement, and that's really going to help round out things, especially if they go with a 6-man. I'm going to fight this fly on live camera right now, and you're about to see it, folks. I apologize in advance for that. But this bullpen just needs to be addressed. Outside of that, I'm liking the direction things have been going. And as David Stearns, spoke today again at his pregame presser, there were a couple key takeaways that certainly stood out to me. And it is as follows, folks. You can look here and looking at some of the quotes here for David Stearns. If I'm actually going to play some of the audio for you guys from some of the David Stearns clips, then we'll get on to breaking down this matchup between Ronald Blanco, what there's to know about him and why he's been so disasterly for opposing teams this season, and Jose Quintana, how they match up and how these two teams match up in an exciting, big 3-game set. Shout out to my 200+ live viewers. Hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't already. Thank you so much in advance. Now, speaking on Carlos Mendoza, David Stearns was asked about Mendoza and how impressed he was, what's impressed him the most, and this was David Stearns' reply.
Well, I think throughout Mendy's steadiness and consistency, and he understands this is a long season. He's been around this town a long time and has seen all the ups and downs that you can see, and so he's been the same guy from day one through when we've had our struggles to now when we've played much better. And from my perspective, that's very helpful. And I think that's certainly a real reason why we've been able to bounce back here throughout the course of the season.
Okay, so those are David's remarks there. Now, David Stearns, when asked about, has there been any one, two select players that have kind of stood out as the Mets have found this newfound success since the month of June, especially? And this is David Stearns' response, and it's high praise for Francisco Alvarez.
Well, I think looking at Alvy's impact on the team is something that we all see. We see it in how we've played when he's been active, and frankly how we've played when he hasn't been active. And some of that is probably timing, and other guys playing well also, but some of that is just the importance of a catcher and how a catcher can impact the entire game. And when you have a catcher who impacts both sides of the ball, it can be very impactful.
So high praise there for Francisco Alvarez, El Troll, rightfully so. And I have a big point that I want to share with you all here that I found out starting my day, and it has to do with JD Martinez and the immediate impact that he has had for this Mets team and how significant it really has been. I'll get to that here in just a second before we break down the lineups, and then of course we'll get close to the game start, and then I'll be out of here and I'll be back for post-game coverage tonight. Before we do though, here's a couple more quotes from David Stearns that I'd like to share with you all, and it starts on David Stearns on if he needs to reevaluate his plans after the Mets' recent success.
When you spoke in here last time, I think it was last time, you said that the evaluation process takes you through Memorial Day around to the 1st of June, and by then you've got a pretty good handle on what you've got. Do you need to reevaluate, or, are you in sync with what you thought then, and how do you evaluate then where you are now?
Yeah, I stand by that. Generally, you take that first quarter of a season to try to get a good read on the team. I also said we're fortunate we've got a lot of time until we have to actually make decisions. And the truth is we still have time before we have to make decisions. Clearly, our team performance has improved quite considerably over the past few weeks. I think we're playing much closer to the level of baseball and the consistency of baseball that we envisioned throughout the course of the season. And now we have to continue it. And I think everyone in that room understands that, that we've now given ourselves an opportunity and we need to continue to run with it.
Good stuff there from David. Now, a couple more I'll share with you all before I get on to my point on JD Martinez. And it starts with David Stearns on whether the Mets could subtract from the roster while still contending. Again, what I just relayed to you, but I'll have it reaffirmed here by David himself.
Or blunt follow-up. With this roster, do you see it as a possibility to subtract while still adding and contending? Is that a potential path that you could see happening?
I don't think I'd rule out anything at this point. We're still over a month away from the deadline, and so we still have some time to evaluate. And as we've just seen, a lot can transpire in a relatively short amount of time during the season.
David Stearns on if he can envision a scenario where the Mets are buyers at the trade deadline.
Closer to expectation than you were as you are now, or as, like you said, closer to expectation than you were. Can you envision a scenario where the Mets are buyers at the trade deadline?
Sure.
Zero hesitation. Love that. I think what I like most about that quick response is that David has had usually a slight pause with pretty much everything he has answered for the most part, and this was not one of them. So kind of, again, just reaffirming what we all know, a team that is right in the thick of things of the wild card hunt now. 39-39 on the season. A series victory against the red-hot Houston Astros puts them above 500 for the first time in well over a month. This Mets team, again, is far from seeing their best baseball yet this season, or their last baseball for that matter. So that's why all options will continue to be on the table, and whatever the Mets deem best leading into the trade deadline is what they'll do. But in the interim, it'll be kind of smaller level moves if I had to be a betting man in regards to the bullpen especially. Now, of course, they will still consider in-house options before seeking external help, but if those in-house options seem to not be working, or to, it's to their demise, then that's where those external options will then be more pronounced and happening, and hopefully the next week or two. We'll see. Anon's hot tonight, wind blowing. Watch that, says Alex in the chat. How you doing? Daniel, great member. Michael J. Stroh, great member. He says this season is like Han Solo saying with his big smile, "This is where the fun begins." Yes, I tend to agree, my man. Great quote there. Appreciate you chiming in. And all right, folks, now let's talk quickly about JD Martinez before I talk about now everything that you guys need to know on these lineups tonight between these two teams, as the game's going to be starting here shortly. So Carlos Mendoza on JD Martinez, and this all comes from a interview, a recent podcast he did with Brett Boone, and I quote, "He started being vocal in hitters' meetings, one-on-one conversations, and then hitters started going to him. Then him going to the hitting coaches to get on the same page and put together good game plans." Mendoza said that Martinez did this once he got settled in and after a couple of weeks. So let's say 2 weeks after his Mets debut, he started getting involved in hitting meetings, putting us at May 11th. Mets offense pre-May 11th, this is according to Michael Mayer of Mets Mirage, 238 average, 312 on base, 374 slug, a 101 WRC plus, 1% above league average for the Mets collective offensive numbers. Mets offense post-May 11th, 261 average, 332 OBP, 451 slug for a 126 WRC plus, so 26% better than the average offense in Major League Baseball. There are obviously many factors here, including Martinez simply improving the offense with his skills at the plate, but it also feels pretty clear that he provided a different perspective on hitting to other players and hitting coaches. This was great stuff from Michael to point out. Shout out to you, Michael Mayer. Always does such a great job there at Mesmerize. And you want to know what stood out to me about this is, one, we've been raving about how much JD Martinez is a hitting savant and how much he has positively impacted this Mets team beyond just his performance on the field. Has been off the field, in the clubhouse, putting his arm around Mark Vientos the first day he's there in spring training, just being exactly the kind of leader that you'd hope a former World Series champ, not a former, but a World Series champ and a hitting savant like JD Martinez, a future Hall of Famer, certainly can be and is. And to see JDM have the immediate impact he's had now, not only on this offense, but to help really rally them around, going back to that Lindor meeting the night of Jorge Lopez. And speaking of Jorge Lopez, he was officially called up by the Cubs today, so enter Nito and Lopez as the latest Metropolitans in Cub uniforms, wishing Jorge well there in Chicago, the Windy City. But the reel back in this one, when talking about what has been going on with JD Martinez and this offense, it has been absolutely massive. And to have, again, the immediate impact that he has had on JDM and not JDM, but on this entire offense, going back to that team meeting where he openly said, let's play loose. Everyone thinks we suck. Everyone doubts us. So let's prove them wrong and let's take it day by day. Let's have the right approach with this. Everyone bought in, and this team has not only been infectious with their winning, in which they have been the hottest team in the National League for a good stretch now, all month of June. Again, leading all Major League Baseball in victories there, along with the Astros basically leading the way on their own regard as of late in the month of June. They're out of the American League, which is what makes this matchup so exciting. But ultimately, to have a leader like this prove it both on and off the field is really rallying and showing and proving the depth that this offense has with young talent like Mark Vientos, who is in a lot of ways could be the heir apparent to JD Martinez as the next big slugger, similar profile in Major League Baseball, especially with the way that Vientos has been playing. There's nothing to suggest that isn't a possibility at the very least. Francisco Alvarez doing his thing. Pete Alonso, of course, up and down, but still finding his groove. There's so much to love about the uniqueness of this Mets offense, led by their power now, something that they've lacked in recent years. And at the forefront of it all, you find JD Martinez, and that is what is so exciting about someone like him. All right, guys, but now let's talk about JDM. He has his immediate impact, and yes, I agree. What do guys like Garrett Chavez and Danny Barnes do? I question that more and more with each passing day. And yeah, he literally took their job. Exactly. And JDM's doing this for a prettier penny because he's getting a higher salary, but still, it's stuff like this that makes me want JDM to be the Mets hitting coach as soon as he retires, hangs him up, should he have interest in staying in the game of baseball after his retirement. But now let's talk about this matchup. We got the Houston Astros, the New York Metropolitans. The Astros 40-40 on the season, as we just mentioned, had their best starter in their rotation on the bump tonight. Step aside Justin Verlander, step aside Mr. Framber Valdez, and step aside, why am I blanking on the third man's name? There we go, Christian Javier. Definitely step aside Hunter Brown, go all the way down the block for all we care. And Ronel Blanco, who is a second-year veteran now, young age of 28 or so. Blanco has taken the league by storm this season. He did, of course, was suspended a period of time because they gave him the sticky substance treatment, just like Edwin Diaz. And honestly, Blanco, that I don't really think that meant anything because he's been dominating since coming back from said suspension. And Blanco at a 2.34 ERA is again susceptible as a guy I expect the Mets to jump on tonight like they have against good starters of recent days in Luis Gil, Garrett Cole, Dylan Cease, among others. They are finally starting to pounce on good pitchers, at least their profile on paper. Blanco, however, expected numbers don't favor him as much. His walk rate is over 3, so if the Mets can really work the bags on him and hopefully not strike out a crazy amount of times, we have ourselves a good chance for success. And I think JD Martinez is, again, going to be a focal point of this offensive contribution, along with El Troll, Vientos, Nemo, everyone for that matter. But I think JDM will be in the thick of things once again. And as we take a look at the Astros lineup today, again, you got Blanco versus Quintana. Quintana's a soft tossing lefty that we know. When Quintana's right, he definitely surprises us with his pinpoint accuracy and even at times his swing and miss, but he's so inconsistent. He's so Jekyll and Hyde. This is a huge statement start for Jose Quintana for a Mets team that is showing a further willingness to trade away starting pitching on the rental end, knowing that they have in-house options that are better than a Jose Quintana. So Jose, each start matters. Make the most of it starting tonight here against the Houston Astros. And speaking of said Astros, we take a look at their lineup. lineup, and it is as follows, everybody. Batting leadoff is first the short king himself, not named WardyNYM, and that is Mr. Jose Altuve with an 812 OPS. The veteran infielder, future Hall of Famer, is commanding second base per usual. Alex Bregman in a walk-year is finally starting to wake up after a very underwhelming start to the year, along with his Astros as a whole. 722 OPS for the third baseman. Yordan Alvarez, one of the best power hitters in all Major League Baseball, with a sub-900 OPS, batting third and in the DH position. Yainer Diaz, who is finally a competent hitting catcher. Martin Maldonado, who is batting fourth with a 713 OPS at the backstop. Jeremy Pena, of course, the young, exciting shortstop, is batting sixth because we have Jake Myers batting fifth with a 744 OPS, commanding center field. Nice range there by Myers with the defense per usual. And Pena, of course, has it, but on the offensive end has been underwhelming to say the least. Pena, who of course broke out big in his first year, replacing Carlos Correa, last year fluctuated up and down with the production, and Pena continues to steadily kind of decrease a bit in his offensive game. Unfortunately, a little similar, not in the great production, because production-wise they're in different classes, but Julio Rodriguez is a similar player where, had immediate great success, but early on is kind of, already needing to fine-tune a bit of their game as well. And Pena finds himself in that category with a just under 700 OPS on the season, commanding short. Mauricio Dubon at first base, 734 OPS. Why, you might ask? That's because, unfortunately, for the Houston Astros and unfortunately for the veteran slugger there, that, again, I don't know why I'm blanking so bad. Probably just a lack of sleep because of the kiddo now in my life that I'm blanking on right now. Mr. Jose Abreu was sent down to Single A, like, early this season to work on his game. Came back up, couldn't even hit like a $150. He was par with. He's never going to play a game in Major League Baseball again, unfortunately. Abreu was oh so close to winning a World Series, but unfortunately has not done so, and likely will never in his career now. Abreu is now out. Enter Mauricio Dubon at first base. Chas McCormick, with his 621 OPS, commanding right field, has some home run heroics that we have seen in the World Series and playoffs in years past. He bats eighth, and batting ninth is Joey Loperfido, who I'd be lying if I said I knew heavily entering the series against this Astros, just with a under 800 OPS. And then we got Ronel Blanco as your starter, as I mentioned. Do all the damage against us? Yeah, exactly, Zach. That's what I think is going to happen, if I'm being frank. And let's talk about the Mets now, folks. And if you guys haven't already, please make sure you check out our great friends at BetUS to bet on the New York Metropolitans today, especially if you want to hammer them with the slight. Yes, they do have, actually, I'm an idiot, guys. I apologize. I have the line wrong there. I need to update it. The Mets line tonight is minus 108, not plus 108. I don't know why I have them at plus 108 there, unless I'm a schmuck or maybe I'm wrong. Okay, hold on. I thought they were minus 102 and minus 108, but the Mets are the underdog on the spread. Okay, so maybe it is plus 108. Regardless, everybody, for all your sports betting needs, make sure you check out our amazing sponsor, great friends on the channel at BetUS. Because at BetUS today, you're covered with all your sports betting needs with a 125% bonus, but not your first, not your second, but your first three deposits for whatever you want to do in your sports betting space. Of course, you make sure you bet responsibly. And as you see from their line down below, my apologies for the hiccup there, everybody. We have the Mets as, again, the money line underdog at plus 108 and plus 1.5 there on the spread for minus 175. What that means the Mets need to either, again, win outright or make sure that they don't lose by more than 1.5 runs against the Astros. The Astros are the slight edge as a money line favorite at minus 102 with a minus 1.5 run line, which means if you hammer their run line and not just the money line to win outright, you need them to win by at least a couple runs. So that's what you have there for your slate. Good luck to everybody. Should you bet responsibly, but make sure you do so with our great friends at BetUS. And for me tonight, I am in fact hammering actually the Mets on the spread. I love their chances to, again, just make sure that they don't lose this game by more than 1.5 runs. I think that is a great possibility for this team, even with the great Ronel Blanco matching up against Jose Quintana in this matchup. Make sure to check them out down below again if you haven't already, folks. Thank you so much for doing so. Let's see. Wardy, because of the Mets and betting, my new poll is in Took Picks on Twitter. Love to hear that, Daniel. Very happy to hear that, my man. We'll definitely check it out if you tag me in it. And as we take a look at the Mets lineup here before we get up to tonight's matchup, which will be live on Apple TV, and it will be play-by-played by, yes, Wayne Randazzo. We all love some Wayno. He's back. Of course, formerly the co-man there with Howie Rose that we would see on the radio. Howie has, pardon me, not Howie, but Waino has since then taken over the play-by-play job with the LA Angels. Unfortunately, throughout that time, he has seen Shohei Ohtani come and go, and he has seen Mike Trout's health come and go. So, again, I'm wishing Waino the best. I'm sure he gets a nice little break away from the Angels for these Apple TV coverages, who, in my opinion, have the best visual broadcast, but definitely struggle at times with, more of the color, if you will. It depends at times, the broadcast, but I do love the videography. It looks fantastic. Francisco Lindor, 755 OPS, commanding shortstop, batting first. Lindor in the month of June has been tearing the cover off the ball, has over a 900 OPS, batting over 300, and 14 extra base hits. Brennan Nimmo with a just under 800 OPS, commanding left field, batting second. Nimmo's been playing fantastic the past week and a half as well. JD Martinez doing JD Martinez things, 859 OPS, commanding DH in the 3-hole. For Pete Alonso, Polar Bear Pete there in 4-hole as usual, 791 OPS, commanding first base. Francisco Alvarez, 904 OPS. He has been a 500 hitter the past week plus of baseball. It has not even been fair how good of a hitter Alvy has been on this tear, and I expect him to continue that in this 3-game set. Matching up against friend now foe, fellow Venezuelan, who I hope gets playing time just because I want the Mets to strike him out 10 times. Omar Narvaez was just picked up by the Houston Astros over the past couple days, if I'm not mistaken. Tyrone Taylor, of course, commanding right field with a 657 OPS, and right, Mark Vientos, Marky V with a 928 OPS, handling the hot corner. Jeff McNeil somehow, but is starting in the hole, 569 OPS over Jose Iglesias, in which Jose just released his new song. But you know what the Mets have to say about that? They'll wear t-shirts, they'll play his music, they'll let him perform, but they won't play him. Harrison Bader with his 743 OPS in the 9-hole there, commanding center field. Bader's been playing great baseball as well, which we absolutely love to see. Wardy, do you really think Lindor is a top 3 shortstop? Is top 3 in shortstop? Let's come back at the end of the season, because especially midseason, when I look at the National League as well, yes, absolutely, for sure. I think Mookie Betts has been leading the way this season in the National League. Lindor, though, has been carrying his weight so much. I think Lindor will be right in the thick of it as, again, a top 3, top 4 shortstop in Major League Baseball at the end of the season, for sure. And there's stretches where he looks like number 1, and then there's stretches where he doesn't even look like he's top 10. That's more in the beginning of the season than it is at any other point. What channel are the Mets on tonight? They are on Apple TV, so you got to have an Apple TV account to watch tonight's broadcast. All right, guys. Now we talked about the lineups. Now I have to ask you, each and every one of you, how do you feel about the lineup tonight, folks? Give me a yay or give me a nay. This is the same lineup the Mets have been rolling as they, of course, just swept the New York Yankees, those frauds that they are. Now how are they going to look here against the Houston Astros, better known as the Yankees' fathers? Let me know in the chat, folks. Give me a yay or a nay if you guys like or dislike tonight's Metropolitan lineup. Again, quickly as follows. It is Lindor batting first, Nimmo second, Martinez third, fourth is Alonso, fifth Alvarez, sixth Taylor, seventh Vientos, eighth McNeil, and ninth Bader. Jose Quintana, the veteran southpaw, with a 4.58 ERA and 5.14 expected ERA, matches up against the now exciting right-hander Ronel Blanco with a 2.34 ERA, but a 3.58 expected ERA against an Astros lineup as follows. Altuve batting first, Bregman second, Alvarez third, Diaz fourth, Myers fifth, Pena sixth, seventh Dubon, eighth McCormick, and ninth Loperfido. What a name. What a name. Nay, stop playing the rally killer McNeil, and the Mets need an upgrade over Tyrone Taylor. Marte is going to be out a while. I definitely see the Mets seeking outfield solutions should they need, but that's if they need it. I won't be shocked if they actually make things roll with Taylor. And Taylor has a great big next couple weeks, but we'll see. We'll see what happens on that front for sure. We got some yays in the chat as well. Got some nays a little bit more in there, everybody. At this point, wouldn't Kristen Scott be a great bullpen option? Says Alicia, he was a reliever after all. Yeah, no, not at all. I actually disagree. The Mets need to continue to stretch him as a starter because that's what they like him as best, quite frankly. Scott has ace potential for this Mets rotation, and that isn't an exaggeration to say. He has phenomenal swing and miss stuff. He absolutely pounds the zone, and it wouldn't do him justice if we kept him as a reliever. It would be like the equivalent of Mason Miller there as a reliever with the Oakland A's. I assure you, he's going to be stretched to be more than just a closer when he is dealt, wherever he may be dealt, because there's so much potential with that arm. Seth Lugo has been fantastic. Yep, he has been absolutely brilliant. They got him for pennies. That is true. Yep, that's all about, for certain situations, having to change the scenery and really betting on yourself. And Lugo is a great example of exactly that. Why won't Luke Ritter get called up? Because Luke Ritter just doesn't fit the Mets' MO of MLB caliber, infielders that they want to consider. Ritter rakes at the AAA level, and while I think he's deserving to give a shot at the MLB level, it'll be such a limited opportunity for Ritter where I don't think we would see the production we'd be hoping for. And that, I'm sure, goes in hand with why the Mets haven't bothered calling someone like him up, but rather more MLB-versed players. One, like a Jose Iglesias, for example, or two, top prospects when they are ready to be called up, i.e. a Luis Angel Acuna, among others. But all right, folks, that is going to do it for the live show. Thank you all so much for watching. We will be back live after the conclusion of tonight's Metropolitan ball game, hopefully after a victory. Crispy has to say, Wardy, what do you think the Mets can get out of the wild card round with the staff? No, I don't. But here's the thing. I don't think the Mets make the playoffs with this current rotation at all. I expect changes. I expect guys currently in this rotation to be out. I expect some in the organization that aren't pitching in the rotation right now to be in, headlined by Senga and Scott. So yes, I expect changes to be had there before that would happen. I don't see the Mets making playoffs with their current configuration of their rotation, personally. But that's going to do it for me, though, folks. We'll be back live later tonight for post-game coverage. So until then, have a great rest of your night, day, evening, whenever you're watching this. Metropolitans lose another key arm and Drew Smith to the bullpen. What do they do? What do they do from here? Do they add? Do they stay internal? We'll find out in the coming days. Until then, let's see what they do tonight against the Astros. Have a great one, folks. And as always,